Good morning and welcome. Many of our customers use accounting systems and CRM.
But many of them are disconnected. In fact, probably the majority of our clients use CRM and accounting software on a kind of a point solutions basis. So they operate in their own silos and aren't connected at all. But we've seen a trend towards integrating CRM and accounting. So we're doing a lot of work around this, not just in Sage 200 and Salesforce, but between Sage 50 and Act and Sage CRM, between Sage 200 and Sage 50 and Sage CRM, also between Salesforce and Intact. So whatever the products that our clients are using, we're seeing a real thirst to investigate the potential of integrating those two products. And I think that's become accelerated through this year as well, as people look for new efficiencies to introduce into their business in obviously what's a very difficult time for many of us. What we tend to find is that the clients that we're working with, the people that see benefit from this kind of integration, tend to have common characteristics. So there's a lot of manual process in the business. So a lot of re-entry, duplication of effort in terms of re-entering customer information into the accounting system from the CRM system. The duplication of data, so we've got the same records in different systems, and of course there can be a disparity between those data records as well, where customer names, addresses, various details are entered in different ways. So confusion reigns around the business, as well as that excessive amount of manual process that's required to keep things running. There's also a lack of visibility across the enterprise. So the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, kind of thing. So accounts are managing the financial relationship with a client, but sales are managing the business development relationship. Marketing people are trying to get a view of what's going on, and they have access to neither of those two sources of information. So it's just that lack of visibility coupled with the manual process that I think has driven people to consider this stuff more seriously. In terms of what the solution seeks to do, it's about connecting processes, so consolidating those various systems. So we're not saying that you should do away particularly with any of the systems that are working effectively in the business. So if Salesforce is key to managing customer relationships and Sage 200 is key to financial management, it's just harnessing the power of those things and bringing them together to remove that manual process and to create potential to support your teams in being more effective. So we're looking to integrate the two systems to, as I say, remove that manual process, to eliminate the potential to create errors, minimize duplication, and hopefully by centralizing the data, we can make the business more efficient. We can empower salespeople, for example, to be more effective in their customer interactions by presenting them with a real-time view of customer account status data. And a transactional history which shows them what customers have previously bought or not bought. So when they're going into that conversation, they've got all the information they need in front of them to be more effective in that dialogue. It's about collaboration between different teams across the business as well. So just creating a single central source of truth, if you like, about customers. And that can extend into every business discipline, whether it's accounts, sales, customer service, who have a view of what happened to the customer relationship after the sale was made, marketing, of course, who are thinking about where we go or how we take our products and services to market in the future based upon the experiences that our customers have had of us so far. So it's bringing all those systems together, but people and processes together to support a collaborative environment. The business case then is built around those key focus areas, I suppose. Manual processes is something that I've mentioned as being a key driver. In a more specific sense, that's exemplified by things like the ability to create a prospect record in Salesforce and then create a Sage 200 customer record from that prospect. So we see this a lot where Sage 200 has to contain information about people with whom we do business already, so existing customers and suppliers, but sales teams are working with a much broader base of contacts, so people who are prospects with whom we do not have a contractual trading relationship. So rather than create a record in Salesforce and then when they become a customer, recreate them in Sage 200, the integration allows us to push that data across and create 200 accounts from Salesforce records at the appropriate time. And that can work the other way as well. So if we've got customer accounts already in Salesforce, we can push a lot of data associated with those accounts, in Sage 200, we can push that back into Salesforce, and that can be empowering in a number of different ways as well. So if you think about account managers, for example, whose job it is to go out there and manage those existing relationships, look for opportunities to upsell and cross-sell, and really understand what our relationship with the client is all about, it's a hugely powerful thing to be able to do, to expose to account managers not only the sales history and the customer service history, which is within Salesforce, but also that accounting and transactional history as well. So just in terms of removing manual process, often we find that clients allow or empower salespeople to secure orders from clients, but also to generate orders. So we can create the facility for salespeople even to create Sage 200 orders in a controlled way without giving them access to Sage 200, to the ERP, to the crown jewels in the back office, if you like. We can create that order management process within the Salesforce user interface in a way that's palatable to the salesperson, allowing them to see the elements that they need to see to be able to generate an order. So they create an order in that controlled Salesforce environment, and the integration can pick that up and create the Sage 200 order from the Salesforce order automatically. So the logic around that is all tightly controlled. We can apply controls around user authority and capability to doing what they can and can't do. And of course, the Sage 200 users ultimately have full control over what happens to that order before it goes onto the ledgers, etc. What we're doing is just removing the manual process, and of course, creating validation through that order creation to make sure that mistakes aren't made. So the business case is very much around eliminating manual process, but as I mentioned earlier on, it's also to a great extent about empowering sales users to be more effective in their client interactions. So just giving them that rich accounting status. If I'm a salesperson going in to see a client and I can immediately see in real time what their outstanding balance is, what their credit limit is, what their account status is, are they on credit hold, what was their turnover in the last year or the last quarter, and I can also drill down into a rich history of transactional data. I can see what orders they've placed recently or not placed, what products they've bought or not bought, so that maybe that gives me some indication of what cross-selling opportunities might exist. But again, enriched by that information, I can be more effective in my dialogue with the client. In terms of collaboration then, marketing is just one example of where the benefit can be shared. So marketing to, I suppose, become more sophisticated in the way that they reach out to the client community. And we have a lot of our customers who've used CRM to drive marketing campaigns, but marketing campaigns have been quite sort of one size fits all. So e-marketing campaigns, for example, have been the same creative sent out to a broad audience. But marketing people know that if you can target segments of your client community or prospect community that have common characteristics with something of particular resonance to that group, then it's likely to be far more effective. So rather than send out a one-size-fits-all communication, if I can gather together all the people in a geographic region supported by a salesperson that have bought a particular product in the past, but not bought an associated product that we know might have appeal to people who've bought the previous product, I can gather those people together and use that to target them with some sort of e-marketing or telemarketing campaign. So my marketing becomes more kind of sniper oriented than blunderbuss oriented, if you like. So we're empowering marketing teams to be very much more specific in how they go to market and how they get the message across. So whether it's marketing, customer service, sales, it is again about just empowerment by providing that single central source of truth in the organization, even though we have separate systems, just by sharing the data. So the business case is different for each organization, but it tends to be built up of components from those three areas. There are other things as well, though. So it's about, I suppose, in your organization, what it might mean to you. Why did we want to build our own connector though? I suppose 2 or 3 reasons. First of all, we wanted to recognize unique business models. So what I mean by that is many of our customers do ostensibly the same thing in similar market sectors. So when you look at the business model from the outside, they all look very similar, and you might imagine that they would function in a similar way. But we find that when you get into the detail of things, everybody's got their own idiosyncratic way of doing things. And this includes not only the management of sales order processing, purchase order processing, but also the way that they handle account management, sales management, the way that they want to market, the way that they support customers. You know, it's very different from business to business, even within the same industry. So through our experience over the years of working with clients who want to integrate accounting and CRM, we recognize that variation in the way people work. So we wanted to create something that was flexible enough to support a broad range of different business models. We want to support best practices and proven business processes. So in the past, we've worked with some external integration tools that expect you to work in a particular way. So once the integration tool is in place, it does what it does, and you have to adapt your way of working and adapt your systems and processes to suit the technology. And it's just an alien concept really to us. We've tended to find that where the adoption of an integration could, well, any business software application really, where it requires the business to change its ways of working and people to change their approach to suit the technology, it can be disruptive in a negative way. So we prefer to approach things by understanding what works well in your business. So we take a consultative approach to the implementation of Solutions Connect, understanding what works well in your business, what best practices are in place in your business, how do you like to manage data, how do your people work, and then we configure our solutions to support your staff in adhering to your best practices and processes with the technology. So it's how can we set this integration component up to best support what you already do that you know works. That isn't to say that by introducing the technology there aren't opportunities to introduce change if that's a positive and healthy and productive thing, but we don't want to damage or intrude upon anything that's working effectively that your users rely on and are comfortable with. So that was a big thing. And then, support a broad range of configurable options by providing scalability. What I mean by that is what we put in place now might not be what you need tomorrow. And we've seen that this year more than ever before. So the only constant is change in business, isn't it? So if the system was so limited that it met your needs 100% today, but had no flexibility to be adaptable to meet the needs of tomorrow, then I think it would not be the solution that we wanted to deliver. So recognizing that businesses change, processes change, you want to be able to change to protect the business in times of trouble, but also to recognize opportunities to grow the business when they arise. The component that we've built seeks to include elements of flexible configuration so that we can grow it and change it as your business grows and changes. And I suppose we're reflecting in what we've built, our experience over the years that we've amassed through working with other integrations between CRM and ERP and accounts. So as mentioned, between Sage Suite primarily 200, and with CRM 50 with CRM and Act with Sage 50, and QuickBooks and Xero, and of course Salesforce integrated with Intact. So we've worked with a lot of integrations over the years, and what we try to do is pick out, I suppose, the good bits really, and leave the bad bits. So the good bits being the flexibility, the way that we can adapt it to suit your business processes, and we've tried to find in there a solution to overcome anything that has been a negative. So if we look or think a little bit further about Solutions Connect then, and the what, the how, and the when. So I'm not going to get into a deep technical level, but just to give you an overview on how it works to extend the concept into some form of reality that I've been talking about. So this is the configuration interface. Now, I'm not trying to overwhelm you with a fairly boring looking screen with a load of text on it, but just to make a few points. So you'll see on the left hand side, I've ringed the Sage 200, what I call entities. So the flexibility that I'm talking about within Solutions Connect means that you can be very specific about which entities within 200 are mapped to and synchronized with which entities in Salesforce. So it isn't a case of just turn the thing off, it synchronizes everything, turn the thing off, it doesn't. We can be very specific. So whether it's customers and contacts, suppliers and customers, are we synchronizing purchase order process information or sales order process and information in isolation? Are we synchronizing product information, pricing, price books, orders, transactions? So we can be very specific about entities around. And as you can see, we can work through each of the Sage 200 entities and just with a checkbox turn each one on or off. Within that, we can synchronize fields, so we can configure the tool to synchronize at field level. So having selected in this example customers for synchronization, we can go through every Sage 200 customer field, map it to a Salesforce field, and determine whether synchronization of that field is enabled. So the ability to enable or disable at entity level, but also at the level of each individual field within each entity. So once we've enabled a field, as mentioned, the mapping is fairly straightforward. We're presented with a drop-down list of the Sage 200 fields and an associated drop-down list of the Salesforce fields that are available for mapping. And the configuration that we do at the back end allow us to set up a match between individual fields. So it's pretty simple and straightforward, as you can see, as a concept. When we're creating record, when we're synchronizing Sage 200 and Salesforce records, we can also determine how that synchronization works. So for some of our clients, Salesforce is the main source of truth about company data. So they want that to be where records are controlled from. In other organizations, it's the other way around. So Sage 200 is the master record, the master database, if you like, and the requirement is to control data within Sage 200 but have that update Salesforce. So the configuration allows us to select between either. So when we enable configuration of an entity, we can configure that to create new Sage 200 records only from Salesforce, but after they've been created, not have them updated by any changes. Or if new, or we can create amend only. So no new Sage 200 records are created from Salesforce, but amendments are pushed through to the corresponding record. So we can determine whether Sage 200 is the master or Salesforce is the master at entity level, but also extend that down to field level as well. So if we've disabled new only at the top level, then down at field level, we can apply that at an individual field basis. So you can see the configuration is very granular to allow you to be very specific about the functionality of and how the system works. Not only that, once we've established that there will be a relationship between an entity in Sage 200 and Salesforce and a field within 200 and Salesforce, and we've enabled the integration between those fields, we can even apply queries to be more specific about what type of records integrate. So on a field by field basis, the query could determine whether, in my example here, the accounting currency is GBP. So if my Sage 200 dataset contains records that have a broad variety of different currencies, we're only synchronizing here customers who have Great British Pounds as their currency, or it could be a multitude of different currencies. Another example could be we could use this to control customers that are of type customer, or sorry, accounts that are of type customer or rather than supplier. So at every field we can apply a simple kind of Boolean query to determine what specific records can synchronize between the two systems. So in Salesforce, how does it look? What's been important is to recognize that Salesforce users tend to be people whose primary responsibility, whose primary skill is not being a computer system operator, is not being a CRM genius. They're salespeople, they're customer services people, they're marketing people. Their skills lie in performing those roles. So one of the values, of course, is Salesforce is that the user interface is sublime. It's really intuitive, it's nice and easy to use, and of course users have become familiar with that Salesforce interface. So what we seek to do is seamlessly embed the Sage components within Salesforce, so it doesn't look any different. They don't have to get used to a different kind of UI to be able to access information in Salesforce that's come across from Sage 200. This is an example of just an account or a company record in Salesforce, and you can see we've got a related tab in the lower part of the screen with Sage orders. And of course, you can drill down into that data and see the individual elements of information about each sales order. And then within that, you can drill further to see the line items within an order. So remember that orders might have been created initially by sales users in Salesforce, but even if orders have been created directly in Sage 200, not by a salesperson in Salesforce, they're still synchronized back into Salesforce, if you want them to be, to provide Salesforce users with that comprehensive visibility of the entire rich history of the customer relationship and all those transactions, whether they're created in Salesforce or in Sage 200. So here's an example of stock balances. So not only are we synchronizing order information, but in order to support Salesforce users in perhaps creating orders, they need to see price book information from Sage 200. They need to see stock records, stock availability, stock locations. So all that data can be synchronized through from Sage 200. So again, when users in Salesforce are creating new orders, they know not only what the price is for that customer, but what stock we've got, where the stock is, how soon we can promise delivery for that stock on site. You'll know if you're a Salesforce user already that one of its great benefits, of course, is the graphical user interface and the way that data can be sliced and diced and served up to support decision making. So if you're thinking about KPI metrics that are based not just on customer information in Salesforce that's been created by sales, marketing, customer service operations, but also driven by Sage 200 data, all that information can come together within Salesforce reports and dashboards, so you can create graphical presentations of information based on Sage 200 data in Salesforce, either at a company level. So this again is a screenshot from an individual account in Salesforce, looking at orders this financial quarter in the top there, and orders this financial year in the lower half of the screen. Just examples of, you can build all sorts of graphical components in Salesforce, of course, bar charts, pie charts. You can drill down into the detail behind all these things as well. So it's a really rich reporting environment, Salesforce, and you can use this to present information to anybody that's a Salesforce user, whether they have direct access to Sage or not. So fantastic for decision-making support by monitoring KPIs, but also great for supporting individual users in their job. So account managers, salespeople, they can see the world according to them based upon Sage 200 data, as well as what's been recorded in Salesforce. I mentioned the what, the how, the when. I suppose the when is fairly important. The way that the integration works is synchronization occurs as an event. So the event can be configured to occur as frequently or infrequently as the business requires. The value of that is that it can be as near real time as you want it to be, but that might depend upon API calls. So getting slightly technical, depending on the Salesforce version you are operating, you might be limited to a certain number of APIs. So the API calls that you can make starts off with a base, I think it's 100,000 calls for professional and enterprise, and then 1,000 extra calls per user license or something like that. So you get a block of API calls that you can use when integrating with Salesforce, and you may be using some of those for other integrations as well. So in some Salesforce orgs, depending upon how you've got it set up and which tier you're on, there's a limit to the number of API calls you can make. So the when here allows you to configure our integration to only operate at certain times, at a certain level of frequency. So you might say, rather than every 5 minutes, it might be every hour, or it might be rather than 24 hours a day between 8:30 and 5:30. just to minimize the number of API calls that you're using in your Salesforce. So I hope that gives you some idea of the level of configuration flexibility. There's quite a lot to this system beyond the examples that I've given you. There's a lot of rich supporting data around this. I think we've got something like 100 pages of user guide that goes through all the detailed elements of integration in terms of how it works, what it does. But yeah, I just wanted to give you that sense of what's possible. I hope that's been of some use to you. I've taken up half an hour of your valuable time. As mentioned, if anybody's got any questions at this point, you're very welcome to ask them. We've got a few solutions people on the call who are all associated with the development and implementation of this product, or you can contact us after the session this morning, and we can have a chat offline about the specific opportunity that might exist in your business to integrate Sage 200 with Salesforce.